Good evening, good afternoon, whatever time you might be watching this. What I want to do in this video is basically go through how Kimberly has doubled the size of her glutes in under 2 months. When I posted Kimberly's progress so far on Instagram a few weeks back, it got a shit heap of interest. I had quite a few women messaging me off the back of it. I had a lot of women inquiring off the back of it, basically wanting to do something very similar with their own physique, their strength and their shape. So what I wanted to do in this video is kind of go through not just what Kimberly has been doing with her training, her nutrition to ensure such amazing results in a very short period of time, but also talk about the common goals, barrier, struggles that the majority of women that I talk to face. Basically, in a nutshell, in this video, I'm going to tell you how to double the size of your glutes with your training, with your nutrition and lifestyle habits, and ensure very similar results with your own physique development. For those that don't know as well, Kimberly is also my partner, so I don't just coach her, I'm also stuck with her at the same time more than one ways. But with her training, Kimberly came from a place where she was eating absolutely fuck all. On average, she'd be having like 1 or 2 meals max per day, and they wouldn't be great. Something like from a sandwich shop if she was out on her lunch break at work, and then something that would just be shite in the evening. And it was always something for her where she wanted to improve her nutrition. There was a massive lack of knowledge and understanding around nutrition, and this is kind of where I didn't want to step on her toes and basically say, like, right, you're going to be eating chicken and rice and cream of rice and whey protein and blah, blah, blah. The nutrition side of things, it was about gradually building her food up slowly over time and prioritizing foods that she actually wanted to be eating. So we had a sit down conversation and basically spoke about, right, just off the top of your head, don't think too long about it. What's the first thing that comes to your mind about foods that you want to be eating? Basically what we done was had it on 3 meals rather than the 1 or 2 that she was eating before. And it was literally like one of her meals was bagel, eggs and chicken sausages or something, and one of the other meals was like pasta bolognese, something like that. Foods that you would typically eat normally, but just creating it into a little bit more of like a bodybuilding kind of diet. And then over time, we took those same foods and we just built upon it. So rather than having the 3 meals, it turned into like 3.5, where that half meal was something like a protein shake, a banana and a Rice Krispie square bar after her training session. And then over time, as weight started to plateau and she was experiencing like a lot more hunger and appetite, and she was in a position where it was like, you can give me more food and I'll be grand. So we turned that half meal into a full meal. So it's not been a case of like taking her from eating fuck all food to then just throwing her at, she's on like 2,600 and something calories now. That's been built up gradually over time, and this is where a lot of women go wrong. They think that, you know, a calorie surplus is going to equal an unnecessary amount of body fat, and it will if you go from 0 to 100 basically overnight. Whereas if you aim for about a 0.5 to 1% body weight increase every single week, you keep that calorie surplus pretty minimal and you get strong as fuck within your training, you're going to build muscle, you're going to create shape, and you're going to use that food efficiently to develop your physique. And it's going to go towards building that muscle and creating that shape rather than creating unnecessary body fat. With her training, she, in the past, before she was cursed with meeting me, she had some like very basic experience in the gym. But from what she's told me about what she used to do, it was shite. Now, originally she was like, right, I'm not too comfortable or confident going into a gym setting, so I want to be working out at home. So we started off with 3 full body sessions with some dumbbells and body weight just at home. And she was seeing results from that, but she very much quickly realized, she's like, right, I want to get strong. I want to challenge myself, and I feel like these home workouts aren't doing that. So she joined a gym, still sticking with the 3 full body sessions, and she saw insane results from that. And that is between those 2 photos that you've seen somewhere up on the screen at some point in this video. There's 7 weeks between those, and that's when she's doing 3 full body sessions at the gym between those 2. She's now doing 4 sessions per week, 2 upper, 2 lower. Basically because she came to me saying like, right, I want to up the ante, I want to challenge myself a little bit more, and I want to make sure that I'm getting as much progress out of these next 5 weeks as I possibly can. So that's where we went from 3 full body sessions with a glute focus to 4 sessions upper lower with a little bit more of a glute focus. So this is typically where most women go wrong with their training, where they think, what I will commonly see is they'll have a glute day, they'll have a leg day, and they'll have like a full body or an upper day. And not that you're not going to see progress and results from that, it's just not that efficient. So if you're training 3 times per week, what I would recommend doing, and what I did with Kimberly, was 3 full body sessions, minimal chest volume, because like, correct me if I'm wrong ladies, but most women don't really want a fucking heavy set of pectorals. There was minimal chest volume, and then a lot more of the volume was obviously tapered towards her lower body, but more specifically her glutes. So working exercises where her glutes were being challenged, but also the rest of her legs were being challenged. So, you know, things like hip hinges, squat patterns, lunges, and then involving some level of thrusting movements in there as well at the same time. And then the top up volume was mostly just upper body. She wanted to develop her back, or she still does. She wants to develop her arms, she wants to develop her shoulders, and seeing that kind of progress and development in those areas is really what's actually, I think that's motivating her more than just seeing her arse fucking quadruple in size in a short space of time as well. But yeah, most of the volume was tapered towards her glutes. And one session it would be like a squat pattern and maybe a hip hinge. Then the next session it might be a hip thrust in some kind of lunge variation, and then the third session it would maybe be a combination of the two. So it's not just a case of doing hip thrusts multiple times per week, it's not a case of doing hip hinges multiple times per week, it's making sure that you're doing a squat pattern, a hip hinge, a hip thrust, and some kind of like unilateral movement where you're working each leg independently. So a Bulgarian split squat with a glute bias, a reverse lunge, a step up, something along those lines, and where you're focusing on minimal sort of knee bend and a lot of hip flexion. So if you think about like your leg as a 90-degree angle, and where your knee is directly above your ankle, and then obviously your knee's in line with your hip. That's kind of the angle you're going for with your leg in order to get that hip flexion and work your glute. What I see happen with a lot of women is, I would say their 2 biggest barriers or struggles is the fear of eating more food, which I'm sorry ladies, is gonna fucking have to happen if you want to change your body, create shape, build a bigger arse essentially, and build a bigger set of glutes. But there's a right and a wrong way to go about it. The protein side of things, I think, is a lot. Some women seem to absolutely smash it, and some women really struggle with it. I think the most important thing is knowing that protein just doesn't have to come from protein shakes, even though that's it's a food supplement for a reason. It's not something that needs to necessarily be prioritized, but it's also not something to shy away from. If you're struggling to get your protein in, opt for that. But then incorporating actual food sources that you fucking enjoy and making them tasty. So I always have a pop at chicken and rice, but like if we think about what some of your favorite foods may or may not be, if we think of like stir fry, you're using like chicken and noodles. You think of curries, you're using chicken and rice. So you think of pasta dishes, it might be chicken and pasta, it might be mince and pasta, whatever. You need to make your food enjoyable, and this is where like I took the foods that Kimberly said she wanted to be eating and was like, right, well, let's spend a bit of time making those foods enjoyable. Like her first meal is cereal. What's she having at the moment? I think it's like Special K or some shit like that. Special K, protein shake, some fruit and nuts, I think she's having. It's a bit like miscellaneous. It's a bunch of random shit that she enjoys eating, but it works for her. Second meal is a bagel. It was chicken sausages. It's now bacon medallions and egg whites, and she has a banana on the side and there's some veg in there. Third meal is like a pasta bolognese thing. And then her post-workout meal is Cocoa Pops, a protein shake, blueberries. I don't typically advise having any kind of fat source post-workout because it slows down digestion, and that's not what you want. But in order for her to get like an adequate of fats throughout the day, which is definitely essential for most people, especially women, she's having some dark chocolate with that meal as well. Not something I would typically recommend, but just because she's having the 4 meals instead of 5, it's just making sure that she's getting that spread throughout the day. It's not exactly going to make her big progress, and it's definitely something that works for her. So those 4 meals are not something that you would typically see as like boring ass meals. They're all enjoyable, they work for her, whatever. So there's a right and wrong way to go about things. So in order to set up your diet for the average female, focusing on a very, very small, I say a very small, like a decent calorie surplus, but not one that's, well above like 300 calories. 200 to 300 calories above what is classed as maintenance. Basically, where you're just seeing 0.5 to 1% of overall body weight going up each week. For protein, it does actually depend on the female's reproductive age. If you are of reproductive age, aiming for 1 gram, sorry, per pound of body weight to 1.5 gram per pound of body weight is a decent amount of protein there. If you are not of reproductive age, meaning that you are now menopausal, or perimenopausal, whatever, you're opting for something a little bit higher, or you should be anyway, 1.5 to 2 grams per pound of body weight, just because as your body is now in deterioration, you're losing bone and muscle mass, so you're trying to get a certain level of protein intake in and training stimulus to maintain that bone and muscle mass. But if you're of reproductive age, you can aim for a little bit lower. What you should be prioritizing next is fats, more specifically unsaturated fats, which are quote unquote the healthy kind. So nuts, natural nut butters, seeds, 70% or higher dark chocolate, avocado, extra virgin olive oil, oily fish, the list goes on. 40 grams is an absolute bare minimum. And then the rest of your calorie intake would be coming from carbohydrates, okay? That being the least essential macronutrient, in my opinion anyway, especially as a female. And yeah, just the rest of your calories coming from that, but prioritizing those carbohydrates around your training window, so pre and post workout. Another issue that I see a lot of women sort of, or not issue, but maybe mistake being made, is not eating before they train. So if you're training first thing in the morning, you should definitely be getting some kind of food in, ideally covering all 3 macronutrients: protein source, carb source, fat source, and ideally a fruit source. If you are training very first thing in the morning, I'm not expecting anyone to sit down and have like a full course meal there. However, if you're able to get, let's just say, a protein shake, a banana, and maybe like 1 square of dark chocolate in there, you're covering all 3 macronutrients, you're getting a fruit source in there. So combining fructose with glucose, you're going to get more bioavailability out of the glucose, which is a wanky way of just saying you're going to get more bang for buck out of it. And it means that you can have that within like 30 to 45 minutes before you train. It's not going to necessarily fuck up your training session with indigestion or anything like that. If you are training 3 times per week, what I would recommend doing is 3 full body sessions. Initially, I'd spread your volume out evenly, so just training like each body part maybe once or twice per session, like with 1 or 2 exercises, sorry. If you're training 4 times per week, I would opt for something like upper lower, 2 upper body, 2 lower body. I'm pretty much doing the same thing with even training volume. And if you're training 5 times per week, the world is your oyster. You've got so many different choices and wanky splits that you can use there. But the most important thing with a training split is that you stay consistent with it. There's nothing special about a training split, and there's nothing special about training your glutes, like hammering it with 1 day, or hammering your legs with 1 day, or just having like 1 body part for 1 day. I would definitely opt for training each body part 2 or even maybe 3 times, depending on how many times you can train, 2 or 3 times spread throughout the week, with maybe a little less volume in each session, so they're getting more touch points throughout the week, and it's not having as much of a negative impact in theory on things like recovery as well at the same time. And that, as a female, you lot can recover significantly faster than us mere males, so that typically isn't too much of an issue anyway. Going back to Kimberly, I went off on a tangent. The goal with Kimberly now, she's obviously got her photo shoot, which is now in a few weeks time, and she's staying very, very consistent with her food. Weight is still going up. When we first started, I think she was in the low 50s somewhere, I can't remember the specific number, but she's now up into the high 58s. So there's been like a good anywhere between 6 and 8 kilo gain over the past 7 to 9 weeks, which is a decent amount. We're getting to a point now where weight is starting to plateau, but it's not a case of, right, we need to throw more food at it, because the hunger and the appetite side, if she's still getting stronger, she's still progressing in her training, her hunger and appetite doesn't really warrant that food increase. I think it'll cause more of a negative than it will a positive. The next change I would like to make for Kimberly is adding in a 5th meal. And again, I think this will bring another challenge, so it'll have to be something on the smaller side. So typically what I would like to do is increase her food by maybe like 2 to 250 calories. I don't want to do that in a full meal. It'll be something that's maybe a little bit smaller. It'll be more of like a snack meal, let's just say. The positive here is that I'll be putting protein in that meal, so then the protein in all of our other meals will come down, meaning that those meals will get easier to go down, and she won't be as, say, satiated throughout the day, so it'll keep hunger, digestion, appetite in a very, very good spot. The goal after that photo shoot is for her to keep growing and developing her physique. She's gained next to fuck all body fat while building her physique, while getting stronger. She's growing arms that could probably challenge mine at this point. they're getting on the, not the larger side as such, but there's a lot more definition, there's shape, there's tone there. She looks like she trains, she looks strong, and comparing where she is now to fucking not even 12 weeks ago, like 10 weeks ago, whatever. It's really cool to see, and obviously like we live together, I see her on a daily basis, so she's incredibly more body confident, she's a lot happier within herself. And as awesome as it is to see the physical changes she constantly mentions and talks about, she feels like she's getting more, I guess, out of her life in a sense of there's a little bit more fulfillment there. She's looking forward to training, she's looking forward to her food, and she's just generally feeling healthier, feeling her best self, some fucking wanky coaches might say on Instagram or whatever. But yeah, the plan of action going forward after the photo shoot is just to continue growing. She's in absolutely no spot where she needs to diet down or lose body fat. We'll be doing that gradually up until it gets to a point where she feels like a bloated fat mess, and we'll probably have to diet her just to resensitize appetite, things like that. But right now it's just to continue growing, grow an even bigger set of glutes, get more shape everywhere else, and then just play by ear and see where we go. But yeah, that's a bit of a run through in terms of how I've helped Kimberly double the size of her glutes in a 7-week period, going through a little bit about what you should be doing with your training and nutrition as well, so you can do the same. If you do want a little bit more help, whether it is growing your glutes, building whatever else, getting strong as fuck, improving your lifestyle, nutritional habits, day-to-day quality of life, please feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram. Head to the link in my bio for a little bit more information as well on what I offer with one-to-one coaching, and I'll catch you in the next video.